Welcome everybody to Team D3, our webinar presentation on environment for Revit. Going to be talking about the environment plugin for Revit, possibly the new features inside of Revit itself, now that the new version of Revit 2024 is out. And yes, it's always a year ahead here in Autodesk land. That's how things roll. Today I'm joined by Nehama Shetshir. I think I said that right. I'm trying my best.
All right.
And she's from Arc Intelligence, and we'll get to some introductions there on what we're going to be talking about today. So as part of this, getting in here, like I said, I'd like to welcome you, Nehama, on from Arc Intelligence, with this beautiful tool that you've given to us, given to the community, and allowed the landscape community itself as architects to come in, to take charge, to have control in there. But before we get into a little bit of that, I just want to give a little bit of background of who we are as a Team D3 MG and how we kind of came to this point. So working with a lot of our existing clients, we kept hearing the same issues. And maybe that's the same that a lot of you have on this call out there. That hey, we're trying to get in this environment. We're coming from land of AutoCAD or SolidWorks, or not SolidWorks, but SketchUp, maybe SolidWorks, who knows? SketchUp, trying to work inside this environment. We're using some land effects tools along the way, but for the last 15 years, we've kind of been separated from getting this environment, and that's what we're seeing our clients in and many other people out there. So as MG, we went out digging. That's what we do. I've been in this consulting role for the last 10 years, and I'm practicing architect myself, but just never could get the right tools to do the topography. So we went looking out there, tried a couple different tools, and found out that there hasn't been many things for over the years, but in the last 5 years, 6 years now, the environment tools were out there, and we tested them out and said these are great, and it keeps the landscape architects doing the landscape work, which I think is critical in that. That was one thing that, we always saw that gets handed over to the architects to do the work, or the civil engineers, and the landscape architects end up losing control. And then we would hear, well, because you're unable to tell your story, there's no way for you to have that experience to your clients. Everything gets value engineered out. And that's really disappointing. And we were hearing that on and on and on. So we ended up stumbling into these tools that you have, this environment for Revit and Arc Intelligence. So I'm going to just ask Nehama if you could just, tell us a little bit about Arc Intelligence, where you guys are from, what it's all about, and then maybe a little bit about the tools itself.
Right. Hi. So yeah, it's very similar to what you just told. We are an Israeli-based company. Our CEO, Ilya Volokin, was working as a landscape architect at the time. And basically, here in Israel, we actually have a growing demand for working within BIM technology, for using BIM technology for projects, both private or public sector projects. And basically, Ilya started to just use Revit for landscape. So if you guys use Revit already, you probably know Revit is the most powerful BIM software. It's really great. It's great for landscape as well, since it has this topography thing that shows you the contour lines when you change the elevation points. However, it's not that friendly when you want to create really accurate grading, accurate planting tools. And then Ilya started to play with one, script and another. And during the time, it just became this thing. And all around him, he got people interested, wanting to use it. So eventually, it really became a company. We actually stopped doing design. We kept in touch with this landscape office. They were kind of beta testing all our tools in the first year or two. Then I joined basically the company, just being a landscape architect myself, wanting to work in Revit, seeing all my architect friends sitting at the table, showing beautiful presentations, getting all this information about their design. And during the years, we were able to make this dream come true and make Revit basically the perfect environment for landscape architecture, urban design projects to be both very accurate, very aesthetically pleasing, and also have all the information. So professionally, you are able to be a part of the design team. And then ever since then, we're just improving, adding more tools, enhancing the functionality. And that's how we're ended up today here.
Awesome. Yeah, and it's been a great joy to have you definitely on this call, but also over this past year, because we've gotten a chance to partner up with you, being the part of that, able to do the reselling, to do training and stuff like that, but to go to conferences to kind of learn and to really have that dialogue back and forth. And that's been eminent, not only with us, but with a lot of the clients and stuff too, that you have that dialogue in here. So in that same regard, I want to open up to everybody else. If you have questions, please post them as we're going along. We'll try to answer them in here, or we might save some of them towards the end of this, but we are going to get into new features. But into that, kind of getting into your thoughts of what the tool itself is. This is kind of the splash of like what it's for and what was important to us. I know for myself, a lot of tools we look out there, you have to kind of marry yourself to the tool. But it seems like with environment, everything we're using is stock Revit information. There's nothing new. There's no new families. There's nothing that if I were to hand this over to someone else, that I would lose out on that. Can you tell me a little bit more about, that philosophy behind the tools and what you were looking for in the tools themselves?
Yeah, exactly. So luckily for us, we've had the chance to learn from other people's experience and other plugins that really failed trying to kind of reinvent Revit
Yeah.
for landscape. So what we came and said, we said, all right, Revit has it all. We're just gonna take some of Revit's workaround that make Revit work for landscape, and we're gonna automate that. So whenever we have an automation, for example, we have an automation to place retaining walls along very complicated surfaces. So the end result would just be a Revit wall. The automation just allows you as a designer to say, all right, I know what I want the height of the wall to be. I know what I want the materials of the wall to be. I know how long the wall should be, but it's still a Revit wall. So again, the reason we chose to work with Revit is because Revit is a very powerful BIM tool. And our philosophy is just to kind of harvest this power and make it really, I've had one of my friends saying that basically one of the big things that we're doing is to save you a lot of clicks.
Yeah.
So you're just working a lot faster. You're thinking more about your design and you're just jumping ahead, but you're still working in Revit and you still get everything that Revit does.
And I would say that's the beautiful part about it. I mean, most of my projects have been in the mountains, so having to do topography for the last 10 years, I always said as a Revit designer with the topo tools that we had in the past, you had to be an artist. You had to know your craft. You had to know like when to put a point here, which points to delete, how to move them around, because we didn't have like a lot of this features like Civil 3D had for manipulation. And it really stunk, because when you're trying to onboard somebody and bring them in here, until you did the time, it was a very hard learning curve on picking up how to manipulate topography in Revit. Whereas if you had other tools like SketchUp and Rhino or 3ds Max or any of the other ones, very easy to do. It seems like Revit's been very cumbersome along the way. So I love that you've simplified that. You've made it intuitive in that. So with that, let's get into a little bit more of the features themselves in here. And I think we're just going to start off with a big bang in here and talk about, the big one that came out. Yes, Topo Solids. And my understanding is Topo Solids, and I already kind of know this, but Topo Solids are still going to work with the environment tools, right?
So yeah, we took it upon ourselves to always be compatible with the latest Revit version. Even when Revit declared that Revit 2024 is going to be a revolution in the site tools, we are working relentlessly, and we're, I think, one day away from releasing our version, which is pretty close to the Revit 2024 release. Everyone are talking about it. We changed the category from Topo Surface to Topo Solid. So if you never used Revit before, don't worry. in my opinion, it's not really such a big deal.
No,
The people who should be worried about it is our programmers. They haven't been sleeping for a while. But
no.
for the end users, it's going to look and feel pretty much the same, especially if you're using environment. We kept pretty much the same tool set. We just added functionality. So I think overall, the end user is going to gain from that because it's going to be easier. It's going to be everything in one tool. Plus, we added some really nice stuff like the inflate and mesh control, which are going to make it kind of Rhino-like. You're going to be able to play with the topography and really sculpture it like clay.
Yeah, and that's been great. And the fact is that, one thing I want to point out that you guys didn't go and get rid of the topo surfaces either. So the fact that we could play in both areas, that you could have the topo solids and the topo surfaces, that seems like a really good benefit in there.
Yeah,
Is there any
exactly. If
more you want
you're
to
an
add in on
environment
that?
user, you could still go between topo solid and topo surface very
Would you
freely.
mind if we jumped in and did a live demonstration on the topo solids and the interface with the environment tools?
Yeah, sure. Should I share my screen?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that.
All right. So basically, let me just minimize some stuff over here and make sure I'm within Revit 2024.
24. Yeah.
All right. So basically, there are a few really nice things that TopoSolid were able to give us. So before, we weren't really able to work with boundaries. It was a little bit complicated. But now, as you can see, all these things here are basically, they can function as topography. These are toposolids. So for example, if I click on one of them and I go to environment topography tools, I'm able to edit the boundary very easily. You can see these pink lines, and I could change the boundary from within the topography tools. And even if you don't have enough elevation points within your boundary, environment can actually learn about the shape of your topography. Another thing that's really nice, and we kind of gained it with the appearance of the toposolid, is that if I click on this surface, you can see that it has the elevation and contour lines. Let's go to edit it with topography tools. And you can see that the way this surface is built, that actually we have elevation points outside of this pink boundary. And that's a really convenient way to work. We call it, this concept is the reference surface. So it's basically an invisible surface that exists only within the environment topography editing tools. And you can see that it allowed me to edit a very complicated shape with such a small amount of elevation points. Now, the really nice thing about this reference surface is that I'm able to copy it from one surface to another. So for example, let's take this toposolid over here. I can go to topography tools, click on match reference surface, insert points, finish, and then I'm able to create a consistent slope that goes throughout several surfaces. So this is the first time we're testing this concept in such a way. We've used this concept in other versions of Revit as well, but it kind of grew better. And in next versions of environment, you will probably see it improving and getting even more user-friendly than before. So these concepts, for landscape architects, from my experience, they're very, very intuitive for landscape.
Yeah, and that just seems like a beautiful tool. Yeah. Now I hear something. What if your boundaries outside, or that element's outside of that reference surface or that help surface? How does that work?
So we actually added the option to extrapolate the surfaces. So basically, our algorithm can make an educated guess as to what your slope is supposed to look like. So for example, let's edit this sketch and let's take it just outside of the boundary, just like that. So you can see that my boundary is outside of the reference surface, and there's no information as to what is the elevation that's supposed to be there, right? So once I click on finish, I get this message from environment saying, oh, did you make a mistake? So you can go ahead and change the boundary, right? Or you could just extrapolate this surface either by adding some more points, or just, let us guess. Let us make an educated guess. And by doing that, you can see that environment just, says, okay, you had a consistent slope. I'm just going to make it longer. So again, this kind of work is really, I think, more than it's good for modeling. I think as a landscape architect, design-wise, it's so intelligent, it's so smart, and it's really what we would want Revit to do.
Yeah.
So we're all around elevation points and organize them in a smart way to have your grading perfect.
No, and I think that's such a beautiful, beautiful thing to have in there. And just seeing what the tool can do, and just a little bit I've gotten to play with it. You can have that surface way out there that you're referencing too, and it's still snapping to it, still modeling to it in there. Such a beautiful design. Is there any more you want to go in on this topic in here?
I mean, there's one thing, however, that we added in the newer version of environment, and it is working with cut and fill options.
Yes. Yeah, because the cut and fill, I've heard with the topo solids, there's some funniness with it. Is that not true?
Yes. So for us, again, accuracy is the highest value, and with the topo solid, it's kind of a new element, and the cut and fill can be, sometimes it can be not so accurate.
Mm-hmm.
So let's take a look at how would you work with such a case with if you have environment for Revit. So let's start making topography, for example. And let's say you have the properties option over here. So all through environment, you can say, okay, I want to use existing ground type, and I want this topography to be an existing topography that was demolished in the new construction phase. So let's say that I'm just going and building my existing topography over here. Let's give this one an elevation.
Oh, there's that metric unit again.
Yeah, sorry about that. But
no, you're fine.
That's just a certain elevation. So, all right, so we got a surface. This is the existing surface. It's being demolished in the new construction phase. Let's click on finish. You're not going to see it right now because this view belongs to a newer phase, but let's make sure you can see it. Let's do show all. All right, so this is my demolished existing ground, all right? So working with the environment, let's go to topography tools. And now let's take this, I don't know, paving element. And this one is a new construction. So this is the proposed design, right? And again, let's do something that I know it's higher than my existing topography. So that would be 3 meters. And let's just place points, right?
Exactly.
Let's click on finish. All right. And then we can look at it like that, right? This is a proposed design, and somewhere out there, I have an existing design. So now if I go to the properties of this surface, you can see that if you're using environment, you will have this calculate earthwork option over here. So let's turn it on, and immediately, one second, maybe not in this file.
Yes, I know I just got a beta update,
So yeah, we're still working with beta versions. So everything is still in the testing. Let's do everything really quickly. I know that in a new file it's working.
Yeah, and this workflow, I'll let you run through it real quick, but this workflow, the traditional portion of it where you're having 2 topo surfaces, that's what we've done for years and years and years, correct?
Again, yes. And also I think that it is very, it's a very intuitive workflow. As an architect, you're saying, all right, I have something that's existing, and then I have something that is in the new construction phase, right? So let's go ahead. This is the new construction phase. And let's click apply, create the new topo surface, click finish. All right. And now let's go to the calculate earthwork option, and you can see the data.
Yeah.
So why is that important for us that you will have the data for each and every element? If we take a look at really big projects that are already built, we are treating landscape with respect, which means every part of the landscape is its own element. You can end up having a lot of different elements in different materials, different slopes, and allowing you to design freely like that with all your different elements and making sure that each of these elements would have the accurate earthwork calculation means that at every point of this project, you could use Revit. Revit has a great feature that's called schedules that just allows you to take a parameter, put it in an Excel table, and in every stage of your project, you're able to know how much earthwork you have in your projects. Of course, assuming you modeled your existing ground, which is really easy if you have a survey. It's just 1, 2, 3. So these are the kind of things that we're thinking about. We're always thinking, what do site designers want from their model? What is a BIM model when it comes to site, and how should it function? And even in advanced versions of Revit like 2024, we're making sure that these things would constantly work and constantly provide you with the information that you have to have.
Yeah. And we should point out that the Topo Surfaces does have a native cut and fill. But in the testing, it's been off. Those values have been off. And this has been great that you are responding to that and providing a solution that works, almost right out of the gate. I mean, Revit
Yeah.
just came out
And the
last
good thing
week.
is that in our tests, we were able to get the same accuracy as Civil 3D. So we
Which
are
is
always
wonderful.
comparing with Civil 3D, which is the most accurate. So we got really high accuracy. So if you're using our tools, you can always count on the results and on the information being as accurate as possible.
Well, wonderful. Yeah, if anybody has any questions on any of this, just let us know. I don't know if we wanted to jump into some other features in here. I can take
Yeah.
it back, or if you want to go back in.
No, you can definitely take it back.
All right. So like we said, we talked about the features in there, the Topo Surfaces, which is the big one coming out in there, but there's a lot of other things to get into. So here's another type of workflow, and this is kind of the one that we natively start off with, and this is your big where you're designing in the primary in here. And if you haven't seen these, we've got the tools in here, and right now we're coming over the set elevation, which I don't think you showed in the last one, but where we're going in there and setting the heights for those so that we can start building those topo surfaces or topo solids, depending on your workflow that you're building in here. So we've got just model lines, plain simple model lines, easy to use. You can hear where we're customizing the amount of points in there, and then adding a line to create that reference surface or help surface. I sometimes call it help surface, reference surface in there. Actually, I think I picked that up from you, from Nehama, on that. But then once you've got all that in here, we've still got the traditional workflow in here of modifying that. This insert midpoint has been huge for correcting all this really ugliness that we see within the model. And I don't think I do it justice in here. I just do a couple of these. But you can see in the past, we would just manually insert points to do this correction. And it was time consuming. And you had to know where to put the points and how to manipulate it and how high to make it in here. But this just allows us to really have that fidelity of changing that up and cleaning up that surface. And now we've got that where we've got these two elements, and we could then hit the shape by topography, which I love this tool so much. This has just helped so many people along the way that you can go in there and just change it up and have that particular element, that topo solid, that floor, that roof that matches up in there, which has been great. And then here's kind of the opposite one where we've done the sidewalk, and now we're coming back in and doing that other element. This snap work plane has been huge. It's more of a, hey, I don't care what the elevation is. I just need it at this step or at that area. And I'm going to put a horizontal work plane, draw some scary. We're going to draw with our splines in there and draw it in. Now, one thing I did see, I don't know if this is you or Revit 24, but this feature where you start to add these lines is like instantaneous now. Where before I'd have to wait a couple of minutes for it to work, and now it just seems like boop, it just drops it right in.
I mean, it's improving we're improving the functionality in every version. So whatever works slowly, be sure that it will improve in the next version. And by the way, we're not like Autodesk, because we release a new version every 2 or 3 months. So the pace in which we're improving is really, really amazing. And the purpose is really, as you can see in these examples, that you will calculate less and work more intuitively.
Yeah, and along that same mind frame, you said that you're working it every 2 or 3 months, but you're also going backwards too, right? Like this is not only just for Revit 24, and they're the only
Exactly.
ones that get the new tools, right? So how
Exactly. Whenever we have a new tool, we make sure that we make sure to support as many Revit versions as possible. So at the beginning, we did support 2018. We stopped. I mean, our tools might work in 2018, 2019. Officially, we support 2020 and up, which is really good news, because a lot of landscape architects and a lot of architects has, their Revit version that they're using. Some people still using 2021, some people would just want to stick with 2023. So this feature that you're seeing right now, this is a new feature, the mesh control, which is really exciting in this version. It's really making Revit a little bit, so much more flexible. This one would be available Revit 2020 and up. So it will be available with Topo Surface and with Topo Solid.
and this tool, I've wanted something like this for years. So thank you so much for putting this in here. It makes Revit so much fun to do topography. And I feel, like it's got a sculptural aspect to it in there. So this has been another fun one to have inside. This is another popular tool, right? Going in here, I think this is another one that we've seen quite a bit of in the past, and most clients are happy to have. But we've got this problem, right? We've got that curved wall. We've got to step it along the surfaces in here, and it's wonderful that you can get something like this that is doing something we would have to do manually, right? I mean, we can do
Again,
this
yeah,
manually.
that's not something that you couldn't do. It just saves you so much time. And at the same time that you would do it, you could use environment to make 100 different design alternatives on the same wall. So this is one of the features. This is actually the first algorithm that we developed. And this is one of the features that I think saves you so much time that using it once would pay up the yearly subscription.
Yeah, I would definitely. And then this next step here where you're unrolling that wall and showing it in elevation, where in the past we'd have a big pain of how to do that and how to document that in here. This is beautiful that we can document that, put all the heights in, put all the material aspects of that wall in here. And I think we're going to see like a big improvement on this too, right? In here. So can you tell me about like this part, this other portion of here that's coming?
Yeah, so a lot of our users have been asking us to also work with sloped walls, not only stepped walls, which is obvious. So it's really easy to do it in native Revit tools when you're talking about straight walls. But when you're talking about curved walls or something that's more complicated, then in Revit is not that friendly in this way. So the past 2 versions, we've been developing the tool that you're seeing right now. It's basically a free-form, sculpturing walls tool that just allows you to click everywhere you want on the wall and just pull it up and down. If you have tangent, chain of walls,
Yeah.
and they'll be able to slope, continuously throughout the slope. So, using these tools is something that we're farther developing. We got requests to also do it with curtain walls, and our roadmap when it comes to walls is really, really busy.
Yeah. And just as people keep to use these tools, like you said, curtain walls and other types of elements, it's been great to have that in there. I know one client who bought it just for that tool of just doing the wall itself and being able to manipulate it. And that's all they do is just site walls. They're just a contractor, I believe.
Yeah.
But that itself has been huge. And here's another, obviously when we're talking about landscape, we're talking about planting, and all the different nuances that come about it. Can you tell us a little bit more about this tool, the area scatter?
So yeah, the areas cater to, well, basically when it comes to planting, we see a huge variation between different firms and different countries on how they approach planting design in Revit. So what we try to do with our tools is to kind of accommodate every variety of how you design plantings, because some people just design, with areas, and then some people want to see each and every plant. So the area scatter tool basically allows you to take your planting library and to just, mass placement of these plantings as groups. You can place them, you can tag them, and you can then edit these groups. So everything that you see over here, you can tag, you can edit, you can go back to a group, you can create a mix of plants. You can, of course, because we're working in Revit, you can later schedule everything. And as we're moving forwards and working with more and more clients, we're kind of developing these tools farther. So for example, just in the last couple of versions, we really added a new parameter to each of these groups, basically called assemblies. And this parameter allows you to tag each and every group and see the content. So for every part that you can see over here, you can know, all right, this one has 2 pine trees and 3 oaks or whatever. So very quickly you're able to place this information and control it and edit that. So yeah, that's that
Yeah,
tool.
no, it's been wonderful. And here we see the line scatter portion of that too. So if it's just not an area in there. Now with that area scatter, that works with more than just areas, correct?
Yep. So basically, again, we want to give you as much flexibility as you want. So you don't have to use Revit areas. You can use floors, roofs, topographies, toposolids, subdivisions. Basically, every Revit element that's defined within a boundary that is some sort of a surface. You can do it with rooms. So you can use everything. So for example, some of our clients use this workflow where they design the layout of the planting using areas or floors or subregions, and then they place every Revit element on top of it.
Yeah, so it's been great because you can start off with that preliminary area plan, plant things based on that, or do it by floors or by topo solids or topo surfaces. So just having a variety of systems to do that with and interact with. And here we see the end part where, I love the fact that you have this tool in here where I can put images based on the, symbols that we're using in the plan and very easily set that up. Here they're showing it all in just, plan view, but you can also make it 3D view or different styles and stuff. But I think plan view is probably what most people are going to use, but it's nice to have that in here. And then we continue to see that, you did talk about that assembly context parameter in here, and the fact that dialogue has changed. It's gotten a lot better with that. That's been great to see this and to continue to have those improvements in here. I don't know if you want to add any more on this one or.
Yeah, it's just that it's really nice that we're able to get client feedback and to be able to apply this feedback from one version to another, improve the user experience from one version to another. Sometimes I can see the tool set from just 1 year ago, and it looks to me like it was 10 years ago, because improvements is really, really quickly, and it's all in the small stuff. We're learning from a client. So this is something that, I'm really happy about having, this, having this option to get the feedback from client and interact with them and
Yeah.
learn through the needs of the clients.
Yeah, here's another improvement that I think is great to see, that this planning region going in here. And I like the little diagram down below where you could just make it more symbolic and put that in there, especially when we're getting into like schematic design and just trying to tell a better story of what's going on and not get hung up on specific details. That's wonderful to see this in here. If you have any more on that to add.
Yeah, this is a great feature because it came as a request from a client to be able to just show a region above the planting that they designed. That's how they work, that's how they document. And we were really very easily, we were able to accommodate that and again, automate this workflow using Revit native elements.
Okay. Kind of pivot. Oh no, we'll go back. And I had a question come in, but we'll say that one in a second because kind of moved on from that. But I will go back and answer that question. Here we have a civil workflow, and this was important to me. I had friends that are in civil engineering, and it's always been a struggle to get our AutoCAD civil elements over. And when doing that, the civil side tends to be triangulated. We have to dumb it down. I always said because there's site features and things in here. Can you explain a little bit more about this tool? I love this tool. This is one of my favorites, even though it doesn't look fun.
Yeah, so one of the strongest, things about Revit is being able to collaborate between disciplines. And what we find was, the weakest link was collaborating with Civil 3D. But as site designers, as landscape architects, Civil 3D is the closest, topic for us. So since it was, such a weak link in Revit, we created a feature to allow us to import and export any Civil 3D elements. And we continued to make this feature more and more complicated. So you can actually see all the elements, all the corridor elements from Civil 3D. You're able to select which element from Civil 3D you want to see in Revit. And we're actually going to improve this feature in the future to include more and more Civil 3D elements that you would be able to transfer and see them live in Revit. And so you're able to design around the Civil 3D design, collaborate with a civil engineer, and you're also able to export files and send it to them so they can collaborate with you. So making the back and forth a lot easier.
Yeah, I would say having to deal with those civil files in the past, the fact that you can choose, which surfaces are bringing over, which corridors are bringing over, and then to have the features just to which portion of those that you're bringing in has been invaluable in here. Here you can see where I've kind of eliminated the road work because I didn't need the whole thing. I just wanted this particular segment of that. It was signed materials to it. That's just awesome that you guys are providing that in there.
Yeah, and I
then,
think that everyone has this one feature that, that's why I'm getting environment. So for some people, it's the walls. For other people, it's the Civil 3D collaboration. For others, it would be the topography. But we have today over 57 features, and each of them is like a very strong need that we're, giving an answer to with our tools.
Yeah, I had a question come up that it is on this topic at the moment. So this is how can we collaborate with other files like Civil CAD, and I think we kind of answered that, but just to play in here, the ability to go in. So on this screen, we can see that we can go with export a LAN FX file as a LAN XML file in there, and then that is looking at the specific corridors, the alignments that you're bringing in, and which portion of the alignments you're bringing that in there. So it's bringing that in, and it's a link. So that is linked to the file. And then later on, you can explode those surfaces and make a native Revit context in there that you can then manipulate. So depending upon what you're after, if you're just using that to do a background, and I love this sample file here, because as we're going in here, the roadways are going to be done by the civil engineer, and then in between the roadways, that's where the landscape is going to happen. So here you have that ability to work back and forth in this file where you're bringing in that import. You're looking at the corridors you want. You're going to bring in the different surfaces that you're bringing in there, and then you can look at the specific areas that you're gonna bring in for that road work. And then once that's in, you've got that file in there, and then we can link this back to the civil engineer as surfaces. So there's that constant reference or linking back and forth between the file. So hopefully we've answered that question on that one. I don't know
Yeah,
if,
I want to add
yeah,
something. It's important
go
to know that if we created a feature to import Civil 3D, and there's a reason why we didn't create a feature to just import regular CAD files. And the reason is because Revit just works great with those. So whenever
yeah,
there's no problem, it probably is because, whenever we don't have a feature, it's probably because Revit already has one.
yeah,
If you
it's
have
not
a
broken.
stupid CAD files with just lines, that's the easiest. That's as 1 to 3 to create a surface or a road from a regular CAD file. But if you have a Civil 3D surface that is a little bit more sophisticated, then you can use the external Civil 3D feature to import that as well.
Awesome. I wanted to get briefly on other disciplines and how we've used the tool. And I don't know if you've seen this, but I've got 3 examples here of how I've seen this working in other contexts. So structural engineers using it for parking garage, especially subterranean parking garages, getting the ramps to move down. I've used a lot of beams, fake beams as lines to help me do a lot of manipulation for parking decks and stuff. But I found that I'm relying a lot more on the environment tools to help me out, to do reference surfaces, to put that in there, and to make this a lot easier, especially when we're going real technical and I need to have that ramp make my 3 degrees, 5 degrees, 15 degrees to make that transition up in there. And I'm doing on a curve at the same time. And this has really helped out with that in here. So I got another example in here for interiors, that FF&E plans in there, that ability to go in and take a snapshot, that thumbnail of that equipment and directly put it in there for furniture, for plumbing, for lighting. That's been a huge improvement that's quickly gotten it in here, because a lot of these tools you make aren't just for landscape. They are used for all kinds of families, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You can use whatever family there is. So, in multidisciplinary firms, we find that, initially they get the environment tools for the landscape architects, but eventually a lot of other disciplines are using that, because what we're basically trying to do is, wherever there is a gap in the workflow, whenever Revit doesn't, supply something, that's where we're going and make a feature. So we have a lot of features that are basically for representation and, documentation, and that's where other disciplines can come in and, find what they need to do. A lot of times we have a lot of architects that are actually using our tools, because in small projects, the architects are the one who are, designing the earth around the building. So they find our tools very useful. So as I said, there's something for everyone, which is something I really like about it.
Yeah, it's been a joy to see the different disciplines going in here. We didn't get into mechanical, electrical, but there's definitely context for them for doing a lot of different and interesting features in here. And this is just a small sampling of what we got. So we did have another question. I wanted to answer that before I go on to the next part in here. The question is, edit wall in place. Can I assign the exact height slope of a sloped wall, or do you just have to use the drag arrows with that?
So at the moment, we're just doing it by the drag arrow. So it's quite a manual tool. The next step would be to incorporate it within the arrange wall feature. So you'll actually be able to insert parameters, and it would work with minimum and maximum height, because this feature is designed to read more complex surfaces, where in both sides of the wall you have different elevations. So it's designed to be able to read these 2 elevation and give you, and calculate what should be the end elevation.
Yeah.
We're kind of considering how to move forward with this, but the nice thing about this tool is that a lot of times, even when we're not all the way ready, we will release some tool as a beta option, and we will just continue developing it. But then one thing is that the client shouldn't wait until we finish development and it's perfect, which is something that I actually like. It's something that we can allow ourselves to do, to let the clients test the tools and enjoy. So we have something in mind, we know where our roadmap is going. But then another thing is that the user feedback, again, that's something that we learn
Mhm.
so much from. And this tool is a nice example. So definitely, I think it's already a huge improvement from how Revit walls are working, but that's something I would keep an eye on and see how it keeps developing.
Yeah, I know we've had that request from us and from some of our clients too, especially on that sloping walls. And I would just recommend to that user out there, put a slope height on it so you can obviously annotate that, and then yeah, you're going to be playing a little bit of adjustments as you're adjusting those, but you can continually like tweak it until you get that percentage number or rise run, whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish to get that continuous slope up. But the nice part is it's really easy to do. If you didn't hit it, you just drag it down a little bit more, and a little trial and error. But until we get that min maximum tool out there, this is way better than anything we've had previously, where you've had to do solids and sweep them up, and it takes a bit of time. So
Exactly.
love that we
Exactly.
have that in here. All right. So I'm not seeing any other questions yet out there, but I wanted to get into, kind of like our partnership, what we've done with you, and what's been beautiful is that, along the way, Nehama, you've been wonderful in like getting us, behind the ropes, teaching us the fast way of doing it, and then my colleagues Jenny and I have been going in and like building this training course. So we have like a custom training course, working with you, with the clients out there, and just kind of getting them involved in this, and to really understand the tools, but not to approach it like you would for architect or a mechanical engineer. But it's designed as, hey, we're a landscape, we're going in there, and Hama's always just correcting me like, that's not how we do it as a landscape. I'm like, well, I'm an architect, what do you want? But no, having that dialogue back and forth, and to really get in here and to play with these tools, now that we have topo solids and a bunch of other new features going in there, to constantly expand upon that, to really challenge what's going out there. So I want to point out that we do offer classes in here. In addition to that, all the templates that are involved, and then working directly with clients to help through an actual project, and going in there and having, this started out from us having our clients come to us. That's how we got involved with the tool. That's how we found Arc Intelligence in there, and having Nehama and Ilya and the rest of the team available for us. That, I think I bug you guys too much. Like, what about this feature? What about that feature? Like that slope wall one. I know our team's asked about that too, because we'd love to have a tool where you can have that in there. But it's been great to have that. Other things to look forward to now that we have a perfect, like kind of like a perfect marriage, I think, is you have environment, and then Twin Motion just came out. So, you know, Twin Motion running on Unreal, having that full plant library out there, that, yeah, we can now go in and have that experience of, hey, I'm showing it to my plans, but instead of the architects doing the 3D walkthrough, now you as a landscape architect can go in and give that client that immersive environment. And we're now doing that fully with our clients, and doing, swaps so that you have the botanical name, that it's putting in the correct tree and putting that in there. Because I always get asked this question, and I'll ask you, Nahama, do you have a plant library for every plant in the world?
No, do you have?
No, it doesn't exist, right? Because,
Right.
going back and saying, hey, is there something that encompasses all the plants, all the trees, everything in the world? No, there isn't. And in region by region, just wherever you're at, that varies. But to have that library, a lot of it already built in these gaming engines, now we can directly connect that in there. So look forward to that Twin Motion, where we're going to be doing the environment. This is one of the actual environment models that going in here. So maybe, I don't know, Nahama, if you've never seen the environment like this before, but that's one of
No,
the,
I actually really love this slide. That's the first time I see this project rendered. And I have to say that Twin Motion is a really deal breaker in a good way, I think. That Revit, something amazing that Revit did for the users, because there's no additional cost.
yeah.
And for me, it means taking it a step forward, that you have everything in one place. That's what we wanted to do with environment, to have you concentrate in one software, be able to work in one software. And now that you have Twinmotion in there, I think the renderings in Twinmotions are really powerful. What they're doing with their planting assets is beyond amazing. I get only good feedback from clients. So that's definitely not a deal breaker, a tiebreaker, right? That would be
Tiebreaker. There you go.
right.
Tiebreaker on that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
that's the good term.
I mean, to have your lights automatically come in, we can start mapping trees over, put people animating, walking through solar study. I mean, all that stuff, all that's very important to us as designers. And I think it's just great that you can, not only just like say, hey, imagine it, but actually put your client inside that environment and put that in there. So with that, not sure if we have any other questions out there. But yeah, we'll open it up to the people that are out there still listening, and see if there's any more. But if not, I'd like to ask you one final thing, like the roadmap. Where's environment going next? I mean, I understand the next couple of weeks we're still cleaning up on the new release, and the programmers probably need a
Yeah,
holiday.
yeah,
But
yeah.
where's environment going next?
So our first goal was to allow you to complete modeling within the Revit, environment, and we've accomplished that about 2 years ago. Then our other goal was to make modeling so flexible, so convenient, and so easy. And I feel like that we're like almost there. I think next after that, we're going to work a lot around analysis, which is super important for urban design. So we're going to tackle the topic of storm water management, shadow analysis. We want to allow you to work with point clouds and surveys. And also we want to tackle collaboration a little bit more. So maybe add in some InfraWorks collaboration into environment for Revit. So we have our work cut out for us.
Yeah,
And
it's
I also want to put in a good word for our programmers. A lot of them are still in Ukraine, and they're working days and nights for this release, sometimes without internet, and they're still performing amazingly. They never let us down. So our hearts
yeah.
are with.
Absolutely, and we definitely pray that they stay safe and as they're working out there. And it's amazing that you guys have been doing this over the last within the last year with all this conflict and stuff going on. That your programmers are in the Ukraine. You guys are in Israel. We're here in the States. So it is really a worldwide collaboration that we have together, and it's amazing to see. And I always like throwing this up here because I know you really like this
Yeah,
puppy.
my doggy.
Having that in there. Now you have something more immediate coming out in a couple weeks. Is that not correct? Like 19th? Do we not have a
Yeah, we're
webinar?
gonna do a webinar on the 17th.
On
On
17th, that's right.
April 17th. It's this Monday. I think it's gonna be around the same hour. What this webinar is going to be diving a little bit deeper into the toposolids and all the new environment tools. So you're going to see a little bit of what you saw today, but it's going to be a lot more technical. So if you're into kind of really learning how to work with these tools and you're already a Revit user, that would be a really good webinar for you. If you're not already a Revit user, you can also join and just take a look and understand what are the possibilities. How could you design differently? I think it changed my world. It changed the way I do design, and I really recommend, getting there. So it's going to be on the 17th. Just go onto YouTube and look for Arc Intelligence, or just do the same with LinkedIn, and you'll find us and you'll find the webinar.
Yeah, and I will say this has been recorded, so anybody who's attended is going to get a recording on this. Hopefully, in the next couple of days, you'll get that official release of the environment tools. And remember, that's not just for 24; that goes back to at least 20 to 18 for all, for some of those features. So really look at that. And I will point out that we're going to be at Built this year. We're going to be at AU. So come look for us, ask us questions on those different environments and some other local environments. We've been doing a lot of buggy groups around the country. So, and the ASLA. So we're really having a lot of fun with this tool and kind of evangelizing it to everybody out there. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending. Thank you, Nehama, for joining me with this, and it's been great having you on. So with that,
Thanks.
I'm going to say bye to everybody. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next
Goodbye.
time.